So, when Fog of Gore reached out to me, as well as a few other YouTubers, about joining in for his community kit bash, I jumped on the chance right away. In my Discord, as well as various other places, we all put out polls to figure out what our custom Space Marine chapter would be. So in this video, I'm gonna make two. One based on what my community voted on, and then one based on everyone's community together. I spent a stream planning out based on these results, picking out bits, coming up with ideas, and for my first one, because we have a heavy mind mutation, I thought it would be cool if we were some sort of psyker. We also really liked fast melee combat, getting in and out with big collateral damage, and in my mind that said speedster or time manipulator with massive weaponry who gets in there, blows shit up, and gets out before the explosion even finishes. I start by taking out all of my bits, which mostly it's going to be based on the body of these combat arena models, which I got from a friend. I'm pretty sure they're from Blackstone Fortress, as well as a bunch of other bits that are in my, leftover box. I don't know where they all are from. There definitely is a Grey Knight's Terminator hammer. There's the old Librarian Terminator axe that I got from my Combat Patrol magazine, and I turned into a noise sorcerer. The pauldrons are just from random Space Marine kits, as well as a Librarian icon I also got from that. The head, I have no clue. It might be the Dark Angels upgrade sprue? As you can see going on the screen during that, I am working on replacing that hammer with the axe head so they have a proper Librarian weapon, as well as getting the forearm from some Space Marine kit I had lying around. I don't know what. We also voted to have very heavy ties with the Mechanicum, which is why I am using this robot, also from the Combat Arena box, to give us a heavy weapon left arm, a Mechanicum upgrade meant for absolutely just destroying everything that gets near it. To attach all of these, since they have really messy joins, since these models are pre-assembled, I don't know if they come that way or if that's just how my friend gave them to me. They're really messy joins, so to assemble everything, I am using sprue goo, as I usually do. I feel like I say I use sprue goo in every video. I also work on ripping and yanking this head off the body with a pair of tweezers, probably damaging it beyond use, but that's fine. It's kind of a generic Space Marine helmet, so I don't feel too bad about it, so that I can replace it with that hooded head I mentioned earlier. I also finally get that axe arm on permanently after a bit of fiddling on and off trying to get it to fit properly. I cover it up with a pretty standard Space Marine shoulder. I don't know what it's from, but it's one of the smooth ones that doesn't have any trim, which is very alien to me as a Chaos player. It's weird. I don't know if it's a Primaris or not. As that may have explained, I usually am a Chaos Kitbasher. I'm known a lot for my Slaanesh models, so if you're finding me because of this collaboration, please consider giving my other work a look, and comment, and subscribe if you're enjoying. Moving on to our second bash. The poll results were pretty similar in most ways, except for the one major difference, which is that it was a body mutation instead of a mind mutation. There are also some tinier things, like preferring stealth melee combat rather than big explosions collateral melee combat. So to show that, I'm using a jump pack. This jump pack is from it's that winged weirdo with the mask from Blood Angels. I got him and saying I turned him into an Emperor's Children or an Exaltant, but I had his jump pack left over. So it's this jump pack without the wings because it's the only jump pack I own. I didn't have any arms that could fit Stealth Claws except for the Tartaros Terminator arms from Horus Heresy. So I love my Marines with mixed armor marks, and that's probably the chaos in me. But I think it looks just so much better than any of this tactical or clean bullshit. So this guy has stuff all over. This body is from a random speed painting event at Nova Open this past summer. So I'm putting on these Terminator claw arms to really kind of punch up that melee ferocity while still being kind of silent stealth killers. The left shoulder pad I put on is from the Chaplain on Bike I got through my Combat Patrol magazine, and the right is just from the Tartaros kit. Now onto the physical body mutations. I wanted to really lean into the stealth aspect of this chapter, and trying to figure out a mutation that wasn't just extra arms, or they got wings, or anything kind of boring like that. So I looked through all my bits, and I found these Sylvaneth bits, and I have so many Sylvaneth bits from the old starter box, and I realized, what if they're growing tree branches and they use that as camo on like Eldar worlds, and they were specifically Xenos hunters? And then the lore all started to click. For both these chapters, the more mutated you were, the more reverend you were as exemplars of the chapter. So those who have the most kind of tree branches growing from them are the oldest, because trees grow bigger over time. And it means they're the most successful, they've been on the most missions and survived, and because of that, they are now, like, the hardest to spot. And they're very, very specific, like, lush growth, maybe jungle kind of, vibes. So this person, with their branches kind of being a little less abundant, but still pretty big, is probably, like, of a medium rank. After they're all set up, I realized that they needed just a little bit more to make it look like it was coming from out of the armor and was a physical mutation of their body and not something stuck to the armor. So to do that, I cut up the branch root hair from a dryad from the Sylvaneth, used those ends and stuck them into their tummy to make it look like roots were bursting out from their stomach. It was then time to paint. I primed both of them with a brown prime, because my black prime kind of was like spitting weird specks. But it ended up working out as a really good base coat for both of them. I did this on stream, and I would have just showed you the audio from that rather than voicing over it, but it recorded all the music I was listening to, even though I told it not to, so it's unusable. I asked stream what colors to use, and people were like, for the time people, what about an aged bronze, where it's irregularly aged and verdigreed, and while that doesn't really fit with like ceramite lore, I didn't care. That sounds really cool, and it really shows that time theme of stuff, like maybe they're traveling through time faster than everybody else, because even as a newer chapter, their stuff is already ancient looking. After I get that bronze base coat, I dry brush over a lighter kind of brassy color, maybe even mixed with a little silver, I don't quite remember, just to really get those highlights going. Then I also asked what color should the cloth be, because for me I associate time with blue and whatnot. Everyone wanted pink. I'm a girl known for painting pink, partly from my Emperor's Children and Slaanesh, so people wanted to see it on this as well. So I paint up the hood and the loincloth and all the other stuff a nice pink, with the same screamer pink from Citadel to nipple pink from Foundry I use for a lot of my Emperor's Children armor as well. Then I get all the black parts in. For this unit, it's mostly just like the exhaust and the undersuit, like little womp things that go between the joints. This is when I hit the model with that nipple pink I was talking about. It's a very, very pale flesh-toned pink, but it's great for a highlight, and it really takes the pink from a magenta to a pastel. Next, I paint up the face, as well as all the purity seals, with just some brown. I dry brush a silver all over the non-bronze metallic parts, which are mostly the machine gun arm, as well as the head of his axe. I put some bright blue colors on the axe to make it look more Psyker-y. I'm not too happy with this, to be honest. I work with it like back and forth a lot, and it never quite looks right to me. Even at the end result, I still think there's a little bit I could improve on, either by changing the metallic out of it and making it just like purely blue, or changing it to be metallic with like blue lightning, but just kind of like the blue to metallic shimmer I wasn't quite vibing with, but it works. I paint up his base with various different grays. It's a sculpted base that came with. Both of these have sculpted bases, otherwise I would have done try to do something special with their basing, but instead it tried to just smooths over. And then we move on to the verdigris. So this part is exciting. It's weathering is some of my favorite stuff. I use dirty down verdigris, which I have to be honest, not my favorite product. Compared to their rust, I think the verdigris is a really weak product, but maybe I'm using it wrong. I kind of just slop it over everything to get that tint, but it really will start to pop once I manually go over it with a jade tone that I've super watered down and started painting the streaks on myself. To clean up the first layer of verdigris, though, I wet in a brush and I wipe it off the surfaces so that it kind of is only it tints and it is in the recesses rather than just kind of slopped on with these big coffee stains. Now is the manual stuff I was talking about. This is going to be for the biggest streaks as well as the parts that are the most verdigrised or like copper rusted. And I just take a watered down jade from Pro Acryl. I super water it down and I slop it all over and I draw streaks down from it, and it will dry this kind of like matte, brittle, like really it won't have a texture to it, unfortunately, but it has a really nice vibrant color. I also use some dirty down rust on the gun. And now we're on to the chapter symbol. I really want to drive the time point home, so their chapter symbol is, of course, just a clock. I think I put it at like 3 o'clock or something. It was kind of random. It was just like a nice shape. I do that, I completely freehand it using some black, and then I go over it with a Corax white to really brighten it up. It comes out okay. Freehand is something I love to do, but I'm still working on, and yeah, I think it's a really fun little detail, more so than anything else. And that's the end of this one. I don't have a name for this, so if you have a name for this legion, maybe like the Time Killers or something like that, please drop a comment below with your ideas, maybe even some custom lore. On to the second one. They're trees, they're camouflaged for trees. It's honestly not the most interesting paint job. I think it makes the most sense, though. So here I'm trying to balance the fine line between being camouflaged and being a good-looking mini, because that's a very difficult line to walk, I have found. So I start by doing the camo, by stippling on various different browns to kind of get a different camo / woody texture over the tree branches and the armor. Then I paint on the black. I don't want them to have that many bright accent colors except for a few green, so most of their details are black. That's the belt, that's the trim, that's the Aquila. It's even going to be their lightning claws. Did I say Aquila instead of Aquila? It's the Aquila. It's the lightning claws, and also like the hosing between their joints as well, and all the vents on the jump pack. The trees have leaves, and leaves tend to be green. They aren't always, but these ones are, especially for that kind of jungle planet vibe. So I put green on the leaves, as well as to give them green glowing eyes that maybe could just look like leaves if glanced, but I don't even know if they're glowing or if it's just the color of their lenses. I don't actually know the lore about that. I like Space Marines with glowing eyes because it makes them seem more inhuman, but I think this one probably has lenses so they can sneak around better. There's a few purity seals on the pauldron, and I just hit those with a white, something that could also fit into the tree line, maybe as like a birch. The pre-sculpted base on this one was like stone ruins, but I really wanted it to fit in, which is interesting because usually you want your model to stand out from the base. But for this one, of course, I want it to look like it was camoed. So I covered it in some browns and then a heavy layer of green moss to really make it look like it's camoed in. And maybe those stones are just like, maybe they're old bricks or mud, but now they're so overtaken by time. It's just like an abandoned rubble. I cover the purity seals with a kind of dark brownish wash. I'm not sure if it's Skeleton Horde or Agax Earthshade, but just something to really kind of add that shadow, darken them, make them look a little dirtier. Finally, a few bright, punchier highlights to really kind of actually make the model look like it's painted to a somewhat decent standard. So I take a brighter moot green and I put this over the lines and skull of the Aquila. back on the eyes and over the leaves. I also then take some XV82 or whatever it's called, that kind of light brown, and I start edge highlighting around to, even though it will make it factually less camouflaged, to have a better highlight, I decided the model looking better should take priority over the, you know, like, realistic camo, because in the end, it's a model. I'm not actually trying to hide it from anybody. Thank you everyone for watching again. I've been Adristea, and thank you again to Fog of Gore for inviting me to this challenge. Make sure to check out his video, check out Chaos Kevin's video, and check out Who Hammer's video, who all participated in this together. Here is a pixelated sneak peek of what they are. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you soon.